like a small boat on the ocean, sending big waves into motion, like how a single word can make a heart open. I might only have one match, but I can make an explosion. And all those things I didn't say are wrecking balls inside my brain. I will say them loud tonight. Can you hear my voice this time? This is my fight song. Take back my life song. Prove I'm alright song. My power's turned on. Starting right now, I'll be strong. I'll play my fight song. And I don't really care if nobody else believes, 'cause I still got a lot of fight left in me. Losing friends and I'm chasing sleep. Everybody's worried about me. In too deep, say I'm in too deep. It's been 2 years and I miss my home, but there's a fire burning in my bones. Still believe, yeah, I still believe. And all those things I didn't say are wrecking balls inside my brain. I will say them loud tonight. Can you hear my voice this time? This is my fight song. Take back my life song. Prove I'm alright song. My power's turned on. Starting right now, I'll be strong. I'll play my fight song. And I don't really care if nobody else believes, 'cause I still got a lot of fight left in me. A lot of fight left in me. Like a small boat on the ocean, sending big waves into motion, like how a single word can make a heart open. I might only have one match, but I can make an explosion. This is my fight song. Take back my life song. Prove I'm alright song. My power's turned on. Starting right now, I'll be strong. I'll play my fight song. And I don't really care if nobody else believes, 'cause I still got a lot of fight left in me. 'Cause I still got a lot of fight left in me.
Hey everyone, thank you for joining us today. I'm Mike Nelson, and let me be one of the first to say happy holidays. We can say that now since Thanksgiving is now only 4 days away. Go Lions. Maybe not. Thank you for spending this hour with us today. We know there are a lot of things in your mind right now, like what this year's Thanksgiving spread will look like, maybe? We can all agree on turkey, but often the rest of our Thanksgiving spread is reliant on Grandma's recipes that have been passed through the generations, or Aunt Karen's preference of pumpkin pie, even though apple is clearly superior. Mashed potatoes or sweet potatoes. Apple pie, pumpkin pie. It's polarizing. It's confrontational, but we went there. We went to social media, the place where all debates are settled, to ask you, the people of Kensington, which of these Thanksgiving sides reign superior. Here we go. In the mashed versus sweet potato mashup, mashed potatoes came in a clear winner at 76%. Sorry, Aunt Karen. In the battle between green bean casserole and glazed carrots, the green bean casserole gets a seat at the table this year with a whopping 72% victory over glazed carrots. And this year, hopefully you're passing the rolls and not the biscuits, because rolls won by a landslide. And when it comes to dessert, drum roll please, pumpkin pie just barely pulled ahead at 54% over apple pie. That is an outrage. Now hey, Thanksgiving may look different this year, just like everything else in 2020, right? But we are still abundantly blessed in many ways. In the spirit of Thanksgiving, a few Kensington families shared what they are thankful for in this season.
Eloise, what are you thankful for? Thankful for Elsa?
Yeah.
Super grateful for my wife Maria, our 3 amazing boys, and our beautiful foster daughter.
I'm so thankful for sunny days where I can be outside getting some fresh air, even in the month of November.
I am so thankful for the support of my family and friends, especially my sister and my mom.
What am I thankful for?
Crystal.
This girl.
For my dog Bitsy and my bird Twitter, and that we have a house and food and water.
I'm thankful for teenagers, even ones that indulge your mom to do this.
At the top of my gratitude list this year is all of you. This community is unbelievable. You show up, jump in, and move out when things get tough, like you did just this past weekend with Thanksgiving baskets. Thanks to your generosity and willingness to lend a helping hand, we were able to meet the needs of 8,000 neighbors. Thank you for embodying the spirit of Thanksgiving as we continue to walk alongside families in our community. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. And now, let's get ready for week 4 of How to Take a Hit.
All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Kensington. We're
Hey,
so
Craig,
glad
can I interrupt you real quick?
No.
I ran out of time, and this week is Thanksgiving. I didn't get a chance to write my thank you notes. Is it okay if I write
No,
them?
I'm kind of busy up here. I have an important job
You
to
guys,
do.
can I just write them?
Come on.
Can I just real
Seriously,
quick? Can I write
are you
them?
serious?
Come on, just take a seat over there. It'll be 5 minutes. Okay, less.
I'm timing
okay.
you.
Here we go. All righty, first one. Thank you, Zoom call Thanksgiving. If there ever was a year to have a mute button during dinner conversation, this is it. Can't wait to hear what Grandpa thinks about politics. Thank you, insulated garage with a TV. You're like the kids' table, but for dads. That's where I'll be this week. Thank you, middle school girl cousins, for getting Grandma to learn and record a questionable dance for TikTok after dinner. If someone is going to go viral, it's definitely her, not you. Thank you, Detroit Lions, for showing us every year that Mom didn't marry Dad because of his emotional stability, but rather his loyalty that is stronger than American-made steel. That's why we love football. Thank you, millennial parents, for boldly making an unreasonable list of ingredients that are not allowed at Thanksgiving this year because of your child's allergies. Why is millennial so hard to spell? Next time you can't spell it, think of me. Thank you, Grandpa, for boldly making it known that you think all of those allergies are made up. Though we remain silent, through you, our voices are heard. I love baby boomers. All right, last one. Thank you, high-maintenance grandkids, for making Grandma change her legendary, passed down for generations, everyone's favorite specialty dessert masterpiece recipe into a version that is gluten-free, dairy-free, fat-free, soy-free, free-range, sugar-free, vegan, red dye-free, and allergy-free. No, for real, honestly, thank you. See, Craig, I told you that it wasn't that bad, was it?
Yeah, are you done for sure?
I'm done, I promise.
Anything
Thank
else?
you.
Anything else you need to do?
No, I'm good.
Your
I'm
laundry,
out. See ya. Peace.
Okay. All right. You know, there was a lot of truth in some of those, wasn't there? Our time around the dinner table has gotten really complicated. We had some time during the pandemic for all my adult kids for us to be together, and we have a vegetarian, we have gluten-free, we have 2 with celiacs, we have lactose intolerant, and I'm the easy one because I actually say, give me extra gluten, extra fat, extra sugar, extra everything. So there's nothing on my list I won't eat. Just keep that in mind if you want to bring me a pie or something. So anyhow, we're so glad you've joined us. You came out in really the first snow of the day, or the year. So having been in New York for 12 years, I forgot that Michigan can't make up its mind about the weather. T-shirts, Friday, and now we got our winter stuff on. But we're so glad you're here. If you've joined us online, you made a good decision. But I think in the spirit of solidarity, you should open up your windows and let some fresh air in so you know what it's like out there. Well, I'm excited about Thanksgiving coming up, to be in Michigan with my family. Small family. My son's decided to stay in New York. We hope that you're doing everything you can to be safe during the holiday season, and even as you come into Kensington, to try to follow as much as you can our protocols so we can keep everybody healthy. It's really, really important. But I'm really excited, most excited about Wednesday. We're going to have a gathering here. You can get tickets online, or we're going to live stream it. We're going to have a great hour or so of celebration, of worship, of teaching from God's Word, and really pausing to say, even in this year, even in the year 2020, God, we are so grateful for all that you have brought into our lives. So I hope that you'll join us this Wednesday, either here or online. Well, we are in week, what is it? Is it 4 or 5? 4, I think, of our series, How to Take a Hit. And one of the things that we've been learning along the way is that even when we're in the pit or we're in a trench, it feels like we're in a trench, that God is there with us, that God is always faithful to us, that he never leaves us or he forsakes us. He will be with us whatever journey that we are on.
In certain danger, caught in the crossfire of hope and regret, thought I could be my own savior, but I'm sinking fast, 'cause it's too much to handle alone in the battle. I'm desperate for you, Lord. Heart under fire, facing defeat, so close to surrender to my enemies. But love came from heaven to fight for me. When I am defenseless, you climb in the trenches with me. With me. Faithful from the beginning, Lord, you know my pain. You have been where I've been, and I hear you say, close to surrender to my enemy. in me.
I'm so thankful for a God who is willing to climb in the trenches with me. Because we have those moments in life that are really difficult and they're hard. And sometimes it's a shorter season, right? But sometimes it feels as if it goes on and on and on. And it feels like we are in the trenches of life. And I have found that usually in those times, it seems like the longer the season goes on, the harder it gets. It's as if it rains, it pours, and then it just floods. And in this series, How to Take a Hit, we've been taking a look at the life of Joseph. And he is a guy who endured a lot of suffering. He took a lot of hits all throughout his life. But yet he was never destroyed by these hits. He was actually transformed by them. And I think it comes back to this deeply held belief that he had that God was with him in the trenches. And I think we can all agree that 2020 has been a year of the trenches. We have felt that locally within our own communities here, as a country, globally. And in the midst of all of that, I know that so many of us have been fighting our own battles, that we've had to put up our fists, and it has felt like we're taking hits in the midst of everything else that has been going on. It's been a year of the trenches. But even in the midst of all of this, God is still working, and God is transforming lives as people continue to take hits and in all the uncertainty that 2020 has brought us. And so this morning, we wanted to share a story with you of how God is transforming lives still today. And we want to let you know that when you give a year-end Christmas gift to Kensington, that you are actually continuing to help make an impact, to transform lives here. And so this story we're going to share with you is about Kensington and our COVID response team and how it is transforming lives right here locally.
My COVID response is a network really that brings together other organizations to help meet needs of people. Started during the COVID lockdown, just to help make sure that people were taken care of, particularly in Oakland County. My husband and I are case managers with my COVID response. So we are connected with people who are in need, who signed up to say that they're in need. For the most part, it's food, but at the beginning, it was things like, emotional support, just checking on them, seeing how they're doing. Sometimes it was addiction support. Sometimes it was other things than food.
My name is Dustin McClellan. I serve as founder and CEO of the Pontiac Community Foundation, a work that has been dedicated to building a brighter future for Pontiac. And when the pandemic hit our doorstep, we pulled together a group of community members, community leaders, organizations, and partners to form the website and work we now know as My COVID Response. In the midst of the pandemic, we've seen some of the greatest need we've ever seen. People that were already considered marginalized or in need have had their needs go to the ultimate extreme. And so we've seen tremendous need and tremendous loss, but at the same time, we've seen tremendous collaboration and people coming together and serving and giving and helping. And we're seeing people meet the need like never before.
Carmen is she's kind of we call her the mama of the Hispanic, the Latino families in Pontiac. She is the liaison between the school district and all of the Spanish-speaking families in Pontiac. Now she is a case manager with My COVID Response as well, and she has the bulk of these Spanish-speaking families.
I've been with them from the beginning. Immediately when they opened it in March, I've been part of it. And I always feel that God brought me to Pontiac because I've been working in Pontiac for that many, many, many years.
Carmen's been through a lot over the last few years since I've known her. There's been some heartache and some struggle.
My husband was employed as a contract for Chrysler. He told me when the shutdown came, he told me, well, I'm sure it's going to be 2 months. It was only 2 weeks. And after 2 weeks, he lost his job. It's difficult for me to talk about how difficult it is when you have the main provider in your home, losing their job, when you still have to support all of these families that you want to do. And then you start feeling mad at God because why is all of this happening if I'm trying to do the work for you? My oldest son was in China. He was working in China when all of this happened. But then we couldn't bring him home. Then I have another kid who is graduated from Auckland University in April, and he couldn't find a job. He started working in the fields, like putting fertilizer on the fields. So it was very hard for him. My husband, one day he went to the doctor, and in the hospital they told him that he needed to have some kind of surgery because they feel that he was going to have a heart attack. And they say he might need to have a heart surgery. So to me, that was like the worst I could do. I have to say that I was very, very mad at God at that moment. Very, very mad. I feel like I was being punished. I say how I'm going to start school, working. I cannot take any leave of absence of my work because I need my salary. How I'm going to take care of my husband. But I have wonderful friends, so my friends were coming. No, you don't worry. So everything was settled for the surgery already. And then we received a call from the doctor. And the doctor says, we don't think that your husband needs a surgery. Your husband is going to be okay with medication. So I say that has to be God's hand. That's why God was telling me, you don't have to worry about things. Since then, I just feeling a lot of hope. Like my husband has been doing DoorDash, and then I've been helping, like on the weekends, I shop for somebody else's food. So we have ways to survive. But this family doesn't have ways to survive, and we are giving them that.
Honestly, if it were me, I don't know what I would do. There's grace on her life. God has given her grace in these moments that have been really, really, really hard, and he keeps her going. But it does feel like a punch. It feels like she's just like this punching bag, and she just keeps, and she takes it, and she's like, all right, let's go. She's tired sometimes, but she keeps going, and honestly, she's met Jesus. And I believe that her love for the Lord and her gratitude to him is sort of that catalyst, because she says so many times, I know God has me here for a reason. And because of that, because she knows that God has her there, she won't stop until he says you're done.
I think that the work that Carmen does and has done with the school district, with my co-response, she really embodies what Pontiac is all about. And even at our core, in the midst of hurt and in the midst of pain, rising up and giving back is what it's all about. And so I'm grateful for people like her. I'm grateful for folks at Central La Familia that give back. I'm grateful all of the partners that have said, we're gonna do whatever it takes to make sure that people in need have their needs met in this season.
I think probably the biggest thing that I have learned over these last 8 months is the necessity, it's not even really an option, the necessity of keeping your eyes fixed on Jesus. He's the author and the finisher of our faith. If we take our eyes off of him, we start looking at what's going on in the rest of the world, and it'll take you down. It'll take you down. And you can't have your vision split like that. You have to stay focused on Jesus, because he's the only thing that matters, and from him comes every other good thing.
I think when the church gives back, and gives back in the way that people have done through my cohort response, they represent the very heart and character of God. When we first were beginning to help in the midst of this crisis, I saw myself, as a 7-year-old kid, having come from the city of Pontiac, and what my family would have gone through in those moments if a pandemic would have come to our doorstep. And so we launched into action, but we launched into action not just for action's sake, but because it's the cause of Christ. It's his heart to help others that motivates us to do what we do. And so, I'm grateful for Kensington Church and people that embody that heartbeat. And I hope and pray that we can continue to do that work, not only during the midst of this pandemic, but even after it, as we all come together, we all rise together, the church united, to meet the needs of people in communities like Pontiac.
It is such a privilege to walk alongside leaders like Carmen, Jocelyn, and Dustin as they move out and care for the neighborhoods around them. You know, Dustin's right. When we do this kind of work, we are doing kingdom work. We're doing work that is rooted in the church. It's what Jesus designed the church to do. And I couldn't help but think, as I'm watching this video, of a passage found in Matthew 6. Is Jesus what they usually call the Sermon on the Mount? And he says this: seek first, or strive first, for the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all of these things will be given to you as well. As we seek God first, all of a sudden his community is activated and we start to see the need around us and we move out to do the work of God. Man, I was just so inspired by that, and I hope you were too. And I hope you also know that it's your generosity, our generosity as a community, that fuels these kinds of movements. And so as we now come to the end of 2020, I would ask you this: would you pray and consider giving a year-end Christmas gift to Kensington? Because it's that gift that could fuel the rest of our year as we do this kind of kingdom work.
Yeah, it was wonderful just to see how God is moving and transforming those lives. And I love what Jocelyn said as she mentioned that it really all comes about to fixing our eyes on Jesus. And we hope, just as Danny mentioned in that video, that, you know, as this year wraps up, that you would take some time to consider, as you think about different ways that you could give with your generous heart to support Kensington with a Christmas gift this year, so that we can continue to reach the one here locally and the one globally, because it's through your gift that we are able to continue to reach people with the love and the hope of Jesus. And we just want to say thank you. Thank you so much for just being a part of our community and for being on mission with us. So today is week 4 of our series, How to Take a Hit. And we all take hits in life. Now, some hits are worse than others, and some it's just kind of like a one-time experience, and others it goes on and on. But it made me think of last Christmas for me. So my family and I, we were going to go visit my parents, and we were super excited, okay? So we were leaving Christmas Day, which kind of has a buzz to it, right? And we were getting up like at 3:30 in the morning, and it was the first time in 20 years that I was going to spend Christmas with my parents. So I was like really excited, right? I was elated to go do this. So we're off, we're get to the airport, like we're ready for this. I have a picture of my husband and I, and we're ready for it. Like, we're like, yes. We even kind of dressed up kind of cute, right? My husband's looking all good because we're going to have Christmas dinner with my family, okay? This is something, okay? 20 years in the making. I was ready to have Christmas dinner, have Christmas evening, do the gifts, the whole thing. We were so excited. And so, you know, we're waiting at the airport. We're waiting. And of course, our flight is delayed. Okay, no problems. This day started good. We're just kind of and it's delayed, and it's delayed. And it's delayed some more. And then I'm kind of getting that antsy because I'm like, we have a connection, right? And I'm like, oh boy. So then I'm like, okay, I go up to the gate. She's like, you can go down to this counter and they'll help you. I'm like, okay. So I go down to that counter. I wait in line, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. Get up there. Oh, I can't help you. Merry Christmas, right? So I then go off. She's like, you can use the courtesy phones. I'm like, oh, the courtesy phones. Okay, cool. So I make that courtesy phone call, 45 minutes to an hour on that phone call. And now I'm kind of like, oh gosh. And of course, we didn't get anywhere in the phone call, right? So finally, I'm like, I need to get back to the gate. I got to find out what is happening. So I go back to the gate. We're still delayed. So then I decide I should call the agency we booked through because, see if they can help me. And I'm like begging on the phone. I'm like, okay, please, I just want to get there. I want to spend Christmas dinner with my family. 20 years. Please. And they're like, well, maybe we'll get you there tomorrow. And I'm like, okay, calm down, right? I'm like, it's okay. We're going to be fine. And they're like, we can send you through Texas and then up to Edmonton, Alberta. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I just want to have Christmas with my family. And then I get this text. And it's like, you've been rebooked. And I'm like, oh, okay, we're okay. Go up there, like, yep. And of course, our flight is still delayed. So I'm still waiting, right? We're like, and I'm like, okay, this day has kind of gone from good to and we're still kind of now reaching that bad territory because I'm like, okay. Well, we finally get on the flight. We land in Toronto, and we have 1 hour until our next flight. And they're like, because of all the delays and misconnections, you have to get your luggage. I'm like, cool, no problem. We go get our luggage. It's not there. I'm like, awesome. It doesn't come. It never comes. So we have to go over. We're like, where's our luggage? And they're like, we can't find it. I'm like, oh my gosh, We have 45 minutes to the next flight. 45 minutes. We can do this, right? We got this. 30 minutes. And I'm like, okay. And then I'm at the same time, I'm like, boys, isn't this fun? We're making memories. Right? Under my breath, we're not making many memories, right? And we're like, okay, 30 minutes, 20 minutes. And at this point, I'm like, okay, do we just go and leave our luggage? I don't know what to do at this point, right? And I'm like, because Christmas dinner is pretty much gone. I'm kind of like, if I can just get there for Christmas evening at this point. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like, okay, if we get our luggage, we have to run, children. Like, I am pumping them up to run. 15 minutes, we finally find our luggage and we take off, right? We are running through that airport. And of course, it's not like just through the doors and up the escalator. It's like doors, escalator, across this terminal, up to this escalator, 3 over, another escalator, elevator, and then we get there, right? And we are a hot mess. I mean, emotionally, I'm done, right? Like, I'm just like, my emotions have been, nope. And we are sweating and out of breath. And I'm like, here's our flight. You know? And then she goes, oh, I don't see your flight. You're not on this flight. What do you mean we're not on this flight? And she's like, yeah, no, I'm so sorry, but it looks like there was a miscommunication between the airlines. So I see your name and what was your ticket, but they're not connected, so I'm sorry. Emotions, right? I can feel the waterworks in my eyes. I'm like, I just wanted to see my mom for the first time in 20 years on Christmas Day. And she's like, well, you can go down to the courtesy phone. I'm like, So we take the walk. And I don't know if you've ever had this. I had like hot tears. They were hot. And it was like slow motion. But yet Christmas music is blaring in the background, right? People are like, ah! And I'm like, and no joke, the courtesy phones were like a mile away. And I'm just going, okay, this day has gone from good to bad. And we are now in the worst territory, right? And I'm like, of course. So I'm like, it's okay. Pick up that courtesy phone. My airline's not on that. So now I'm ticked because I have to make an international phone call. And I'm like, this day just keeps getting better and better, right? So I make the phone call, whatever. And at this point, I'm just like, I just need to get there. Christmas is gone. I just need to get there. And they're like, okay, well, we can get you on a flight to Montreal. I'm like, okay, so we're going to fly from Toronto to Montreal, and Montreal all the way back to the West Coast. I'm like, why not? Because that is what this day is, right? So I'm like, hey, family, we got a flight. So we fly off to Montreal finally. We get there. I decide to call the car rental place because I'm like, hey, we're getting in later, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, oh, that's no problem, but we do close at such and such time. I'm like, of course you do, because that is what this day is, right? And then she goes, if we have a car available. If? Like, what is my car reservation good for if you have a car? I'm like, okay. Yep, we're now in the worser category of this day. I don't know, right? And so I have a couple pictures of kind of emotionally where my husband and I were at. So that's me. Loving Christmas Day. I think my husband's the best, though. Yep. That's where we were, guys. And so there we are in Montreal. We're ready to board this flight. And then my son goes, I don't know where my device is. What do you mean you don't know where your device is? Of course, he left it on the last plane. And we're just like, yep, that's what this is. So we finally land. We land in Vancouver. We make it to that car rental place within 10 minutes. I'm like, finally, right? Finally, we got to win here. And then she goes, yeah, oh, yes, we have one car available for you. I'm like, thank you. It was like this much bigger than a smart car. Have you seen a smart car? There was 4 of us and all of our luggage, and I was just like, well, yes, because this is what this day is. It was like a snowball, right? Because sometimes we take the hits, and sometimes it's just like this day, right? It's this day, and it's like goes chaotic, and you're just like, oh my gosh. And other times, though, it feels as if it's a season. But every hit hurts, but some hurt worse. Now, speaking of taking hits, I kind of looked up some things about that. And in boxing, I don't know if you know this, but the shortest boxing fight was 1.5 seconds. It was like, and from that, I know you're like, Shauna, it was you, right? That form and sound effects, because that's how you fight, right? Yeah, but that's really impressive, 1.5. But on the flip side, the longest match in history was in 1893, and it was 110 rounds, okay? 7 hours and 19 minutes. I don't know who stuck around to like time that out because, oh my gosh, 7 hours. And it was a no contest by the end of it, the referee called, because the fighters were too dazed to come out of their corners. Because sometimes that's what life is like. We're taking those hits and we are too dazed to do anything else. Now, I think most of us probably have enough faith or strength to do a quick 1.5, right? We got that in us. But how do we do it when it's been 110 rounds? And it feels like we're in the fight of our life again and again and over again. And so in this series, we've been looking at the life of Joseph because he took a lot of hits. A few weeks ago, we met him, and he was a 17-year-old kid, and he ends up getting thrown into a pit by his brothers. Luckily for him, they decide not to kill him, but they end up deciding to sell him to be a slave. And so he goes and ends up working this guy for Potiphar. And then at Potiphar's house, his wife is all like, "Hey, Joey." And he's like, And she's like, "Oh, no. Come here, boy." And he's like, "Heck no." And he runs away. But she's a little ticked about that. So then she tells her husband, he's like, "Hey, do you know what Joseph did to me?" Blah, blah, blah. Falsely accuses him, basically, of sexual harassment. And Potiphar lands him in prison. And this is where we ended his story last week. So here he is in prison. And you're kind of at this point like, come on. Joseph has been through a lot. I mean, he's separated from his family and all these different hits that he is taking. And we're going to pick up his story today in Genesis in chapter 40, verse 1. And it says, sometime later. Sometime later. Okay, so this isn't meaning that like yesterday Joseph was thrown in prison. He's been there now for a little bit. Sometime later. It says, sometime later, Pharaoh's chief cupbearer and chief baker offended their royal master. Pharaoh became angry with these two officials, and he put them in the prison where Joseph was, in the palace of the captain of the guard. They remained in prison for quite some time, so now we have some more time here. And the captain of the guard assigned them to Joseph, who looked after them. While they were in prison, Pharaoh's cupbearer and baker each had a dream one night, and each dream had its own meaning. When Joseph saw them the next morning, he noticed that they both looked upset. "Why do you look so worried today?" he asked them. And they replied, "We both had dreams last night, but no one can tell us what they mean." "Interpreting dreams is God's business," Joseph replied. "Go ahead and tell me your dreams." So they have these kind of strange dreams. Now, who remembers their dreams when you dream? Yeah? Okay, and if you're watching online, we'd love for you to comment. I know I only remember, I feel like, the strange dreams. And I was told as a little girl that if you eat cheese before you go to sleep at night, you'll have odd dreams. No clue if that's true, but even to this day, I'm really conscious of that. So like the other day I woke up and I'm like, oh, and I'm kind of processing through, but then I'm like, what did I eat last night? Did I have cheese? I have no idea if it's true or not. So maybe these guys had some nachos, some cold pizza, I don't know. But they have these really strange dreams. And so Joseph talks with them, and he's able to tell them what they mean. And so to the cupbearer, he's like, hey, in a couple days, you're actually going to get out of prison, and Pharaoh is going to give you your old job back. And then he asks them a favor. He says, hey, but could you put in a good word for me with Pharaoh? Like, could you let him know about who I am, what I've done? Could you do that for me? Because I'm sure Joseph was thinking, okay, if he gets out in a couple days, and then he gets his old job back, and he talks to Pharaoh, maybe by the end of the week, tops, maybe I'll be out of here. Maybe he was packing his bags, this is the ticket out. And then to the baker, he says, yeah, in a couple days, you're going to get out of here, but actually Pharaoh's going to behead you and impale you, and I don't know what kind of cheese he ate, but don't eat that. But then it goes on here. We pick it up in verse 20, and it says that Pharaoh's birthday came 3 days later, and he prepared a banquet for all of his officials and staff. He summoned his chief cupbearer and his chief baker to join the other officials. He then restored the chief cupbearer to his former position so he could again hand Pharaoh his cup. I kind of like that as a job. You're just like, here, dude, here's your drink. But Pharaoh impaled the chief baker, just as Joseph had predicted when he interpreted his dream. Pharaoh's chief cupbearer, however, forgot all about Joseph, never giving him another thought. Another hit in Joseph, right? He forgot all about him. It's just another hit in the long line of hits that Joseph has been taking. And so we're going to skip ahead to the next chapter in Genesis 41, and it says that 2 full years later, Pharaoh dreamed that he was standing on the bank of the Nile River. 2 years later. So there was some time, and then we had quite some time, and now it is 2 full years later, and Joseph is still in prison. He's innocent and he's there. And I don't know exactly what he was thinking or saying. The Bible does not give us like a specific narrative of his inner thoughts. But if it was me, I kind of would be like, what the heck, God? Like, why am I still here? Like, I didn't even do anything. Where are you in all of this, God? Because I know when it comes to you and I, in these seasons when it is hard and difficult and we're taking hits, maybe you lost your job and then it affects your finances and how do you pay your bill? How do you pay your mortgage? And it just rolls from there. Or maybe you had a diagnosis. Well, it keeps coming and it feels like you never get a win. It's difficult. It's frustrating. It can be disheartening. At times it's so isolating. And it can feel so hopeless. And in these moments, it's so easy to be like, how do I keep going? Because the longer it goes on, it's harder to find anything positive, right? It's a lot easier to go, I don't know if I can do this anymore. I know for me personally, part of my life, I've been in a season that has been difficult, honestly, for a lot longer than I expected. And at times, it's really heavy, almost soul-crushing. And I have faith in Jesus. I trust him. So I'm believing for the hope and restoration, but all the while, I'm kind of always in this mode of bracing myself for the potential of more pain. And it's a strange tension to live in. It's kind of like this waiting. But we don't like to wait, do we? We don't want to have to wait whether we go through drive-through to get our food or for the app on our phone to load. We don't want to have to wait. And we don't like to wait in the other areas of our life either. And for those of us who are Christ followers, we kind of don't want to have to wait for God. We kind of put some expectations on him. We think we know how he should move, operate, what it should look like. And so when it doesn't, we get really frustrated because we're like, well, then this isn't the right thing. This can't be from God. I don't know what's happening here, right? Like we get really anxious because we don't want to wait. And it can be in our relationships, our marriage. It could be in your finances. It could be in addictions, in illness. We don't want to wait. But sometimes the hits just keep coming and we're like, how do I do this? How do I keep going? And here we have this guy, Joseph, who has been in prison for all these years, and he's still there. So what do we learn from him? What can we learn from Joseph? Because sometimes it keeps going, and sometimes it's because of the choices we make, but sometimes it is just life. So what can we learn? Patience. Now, it's not really fancy. You're not going to be like, wow. You're not going to go home and probably hashtag that or tweet it. Trust me. And I'm the type of person, I like to come up with like little ideas and illustrations. And I was like, there's nothing. It's just the word patience. And I think patience is hard because it doesn't actually give you an answer. There's no end. There's no conclusion. Like it's not going to stop your suffering in life. But yet patience is a discipline. It's a spiritual discipline. It's a work that sometimes is necessary for our own growth. But sometimes it feels unpleasant, and so we really don't like to lean into the idea of being patient. Because if we want to get better at being patient, that means we're going to have to practice it. And if we want to practice being patient, that probably means we're going to have some waiting. But here's the thing. Patience actually produces and helps cultivate our character. Yeah, it might not give us the answer to the hits and stop them from coming in our life, but it will help us build and nurture our strength, our stamina, our resiliency, and maybe if we allow it, it will actually, which I think is the most important thing, help grow our faith and trust in God. I love what it says here in Romans 5. It says, we can rejoice too when we run into problems and trials, for we know that they help us develop endurance. And endurance develops strength of character, and character strengthens our confident hope of salvation. Patience is actually going to develop our character and help us in our relationship with God. And maybe you do not like what you have gone through or what you are going through, and maybe it is not fair how long it has lasted in your life. But how you respond to your present circumstances may create your future opportunities. And so here we have Joseph, who is waiting. He's still there, he is waiting. And now we learn that Pharaoh has had this dream. And that basically his dream has 7 fat, healthy cows, 7 thin, scrawny cows. And he wants to know what this means. So Pharaoh, he goes to all of his advisors. He's like, tell me. And no one can tell him what his dream means. But then, it says in Galatians 41:9, finally, the king's chief cupbearer spoke up. Today I have been reminded of my failure, he told Pharaoh. Some time ago, you were angry with the chief baker and me, and you imprisoned us in the palace of the captain of the guard. One night, the chief baker and I each had a dream, and each dream had its own meaning. There was a young Hebrew man with us in the prison who was a slave of the captain of the guard. We told him our dreams, and he told us what each of them meant. Finally, right? Like, finally. Oh my gosh, where have you been all this time? Finally, now you remember? Well, finally. Okay, so then it goes on in verse 14, and it says, so Pharaoh sent for Joseph at once, and he was quickly brought from the prison. After he shaved and changed his clothes, he went in and stood before Pharaoh. I was going to say, I love sometimes the details that the Bible gives us. Joseph shaved. I mean, I'm sure his beard was like, can you imagine all those years? Like, whew. But he shaved. I just think that's hilarious. So he shaves and he goes in and he sees Pharaoh and he nails the interpretation, right? Like he does it. And Pharaoh is like, oh my gosh. He's so excited. He loves this, right? So he frees Joseph from prison. Like, freedom. Finally, Joseph is free. But not only that, he basically promotes him and gives him a job that is like vice president of the nation. I mean, I don't think Joseph could have ever imagined that he would have ended up there. I mean, think about all those years. He was separated from his family, all the hits that he took. I do not think Joseph could have dreamed up that he would have ended up there. And I think when it comes to you and I, that maybe we should look at the seasons where we take the hits differently. It's not that God has been maybe taking forever, but maybe that he's wanting to forge your future, which is why we actually need to get better at waiting. So Joseph is free. He is finally free, right? Like, it's amazing. But I think for you and I, it's important to know that it's not always about the outcome. Because yes, sometimes it is going to be amazing. Your prayers are going to be answers. There's going to be restitution. You're going to find the rescue. You're going to find redemption. It's going to be beautiful and worth every celebration. But sometimes it's not going to feel very redemptive. Sometimes it's going to feel as if the hits just keep coming and coming and coming. Someone that I've been following on social media for the last couple of years, her name is Catherine Wolfe, and she's written a couple books, Hope, Heal, Suffer Strong. And at the age of 26, she suffered a massive and catastrophic brain stem stroke. And it completely altered her life. It's a miracle that she's alive, but I absolutely love her perspective. And she says, God's works are powerfully evident in his healing of our hurts, but perhaps even more profoundly in the not yet healing. That's why how we suffer matters. Suffering Strong offers a unique testimony to all who witness it, unveiling an in the midst of God who is too big and too good not to be worshiped, whether or not our longed for outcome materializes. Because it's not about the outcome. It's about him. It's about God. And so when we're in the seasons where we are taking these hits and we are begging, we're praying God for the answer, for the healing, for just the release, for the freedom, for something to change, those are good, but you don't have to stop praying those prayers. But I think in the midst of those, we also need to be saying, God, what do you want to do in me? Because it's not about the outcome, but what do you want to do in me? Because yes, Joseph was in a physical prison, but I can't help but think that God actually freed him from a different kind of prison. Because when we met Joseph a couple weeks ago, he was a young, arrogant, like self-obsessed kind of kid. And he's a different guy now. And we're going to get to see a little bit more about who he is now in the story next week as we conclude this series. And so I would encourage you to come back, whether it be in person or online, because it's beautiful. It really is. It's a beautiful redemption of his story. And so maybe for us, though, these experiences where we are taking all these hits is really more of an opportunity that God wants to work in us. And not to be so focused on the outcome, because maybe he wants to work in us and free us from a different kind of prison. Maybe it's pride, it's lust, it's addiction, self-reliance, fear, anger. It's this stuff. It's the sin that gets in the way. Hebrews 12, it says, therefore, since we are surrounded by such a huge crowd of witnesses to the life of faith, let us strip off every weight that slows us down, especially the sin that so easily trips us up, and let us run with endurance the race that God has set before us. See, he wants us to get rid of the sin and the stuff because it weighs us down. It keeps us from living the life that God has for you, that he has created for you, the purposes that he wants. It keeps us from becoming more and more like him, because see, here's the thing. As a Christ follower, our goal is not to have some perfect, trouble-free life, but it is to have a life that reflects the heart of Christ by being satisfied and consumed by him, no matter what is happening around us. So that's good and all, but let's be practical. Like, how do you actually do that, though, when we're taking the hits? Because if you have been in a season, or if you are in one right now where it feels like it's just hit after hit after hit, you're probably really tired. You get weary. You don't know how you can make it another day sometimes. It feels hopeless. So how do we actually do this? I think one of the key things is to lean in to the promises of God. Just like that song talked about, trenches, that God is with us, that God is for us. But here's the thing. There's a difference between just saying it as some, yay, uplifting Christian phrase that, yeah, okay, God's with me. But when we actually become mindful of those phrases and mindful of the promises of God, where it's reflected in our heart. Because when we actually lean into his promises, we begin to trust him. And that trust helps us build up that stamina so we can fight one more time. Whether we're crawling on the ground or not, we can do it because we've leaned into him, because our trust is in him. It's not about the outcome of what is going to happen in our circumstances. It all comes back to him. No matter how awful our circumstances may be, we are finding satisfaction in him. But in order to do that, we have to know what these promises are. So really quick, just as going to be like rapid fire, just want to share just a few of the promises that we find in God. Deuteronomy 31, do not be afraid or discouraged, for the Lord will personally go ahead of you. He will be with you. He will neither fail you nor abandon you. Isaiah 41, don't be afraid, for I am with you. Don't be discouraged, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my victorious right hand. Isaiah 43, this is probably one of my favorites. When you go through deep waters, I will be with you. When you go through rivers of difficulty, you will not drown. When you walk through the fire of oppression, you will not be burned up. The flames will not consume you. 2 Thessalonians says, but the Lord is faithful. He will strengthen you and protect you from the evil one. Philippians 13, for I can do everything through Christ who gives me strength. Psalm 29, the Lord gives his people strength. The Lord blesses them with peace. Isaiah 54, for the mountains may move and the hills disappear, but even then my faithful love for you will remain. 1 Corinthians 13:8 says, love never fails. God is love, so that means God never fails. And from these promises, we can learn that he will be with us. He will be our strength. He will be our peace. He will protect us. He will always love us. But we got to know them. That means we got to study them. We got to read them. We got to memorize them. We got to pray these. Because if we want to be mindful, if we actually want that to be reflected in our life, we got to spend time with him knowing that. We have to be consumed with his promises. Because in life, we're going to take some hits. But if we want to be transformed by these hits, instead of being destroyed by them, we have to make the decision then to be consumed by him and learn how to lean into the promises that he has for us. To see that in the midst of anything, whether it feels like we're on a mountaintop and it's great, or it's a season that has been hard and long for a long, long time, that he is a good, good God who is always with us and always for us. Will you pray with me? God, I just pray that for each one of us, no matter where we are at in life, we can all agree that 2020 has been hard. We've all taken some hits this year, and some have been worse than others. Some of us are still struggling, and we don't know when the next hit is just going to be the one that knocks us over, God. But I pray that we would not give up. I pray no matter how battered and weary we feel in this moment, Jesus, that we would lean into who you are, because you are a good God who is for us, Jesus. And that you would give us just that strength, the stamina, whatever we need, that hope to make it one more fight. And that our eyes and our heart would be focused on you, Jesus. That no matter what the outcome is, that we would be reminded of the story of Joseph, that you are always with us. May we lean into those promises, Jesus. I thank you for your goodness, God. We love you in your name. Amen.
I love you, Lord, for your mercy never fails me. And all my days I've been held in your hands. From the moment that I wake up until I lay my head, oh, I have lived in the goodness of God. All my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. I love your voice. You have led me through the fires and darkest nights. You are close like no other. I've known you as a father, I've known you as a friend, and I have lived in the goodness of God. 'Cause all my life you have been faithful. And all my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. With my life laid down, I surrender now. I give you everything. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. With my life laid down, I surrender now. I give you everything. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. 'Cause all my life you have been faithful.
I'm so thankful for the goodness of God, aren't you? No matter what the season of life, He is still a good, good God. I'm so, so thankful for that. And this week, as we enter into Thanksgiving, I hope that you take some time and just maybe reflect, as crazy as 2020 has been this year, to reflect on the goodness of God, even in the midst of. Because He's been good, He's been transforming lives, and He's been faithful, and sometimes the small ways, sometimes the overlooked things, and sometimes it's been big, but He's always been faithful. And so we encourage you to do that. Also want to let you know that if you would like to receive our offering this morning, there are some buckets available at the back if you came prepared to do that physically. Otherwise, you can go online to our website, you can go to our app, or you can even text Kensington to 77977. And thank you so much for just being a part of us and being on mission with us and for your faithful giving. And we hope to see you back here on Wednesday, whether in person or on the stream for our Thanksgiving Eve service. And it's going to be awesome. So have an awesome day, be blessed, and we'll see you Wednesday night.